She replied, "Didn't you know she is back in town? She's been divorced from Sven and bought a small house here and moved in about 2 weeks ago. She's been asking questions about you. Why don't you call her and talk directly to her instead of through me?" Mona gave me Lottie's phone number and I decided to call her at once. Of course, she might ask me to take a hike and stay where I got. But I thought, who dares wins? So I called her and she answered, "Lottie. Hi, I'm Michael, an old ex-boyfriend if you remember me. Mona told me you're back in town and I just wanted to say welcome back." Now was the critical moment. How would she take my call? To my great pleasure, she sounded glad to hear from me, and we had a long and pleasant talk. She even accepted my invitation to lunch on Saturday. Afterwards, I was in a good mood and spent the rest of the evening with Mona and her husband. To my great relief, Lizette pretended to be sleeping when I got home, and I slept when she left for her mother's on Saturday morning. I did some service on my drilling equipment in the morning, and at 1 o'clock, I stood waiting for Lottie outside the restaurant I had suggested for our lunch. I can't deny that I had almost the same feelings I had on my first date with her almost 8 years ago. When I had waited 15 minutes and still no Lottie, I began to doubt if she would come at all. But then she came. She was still a very handsome woman, and now even in some way more ladylike than when I saw her several years ago. She had her little daughter Jennifer with her. When she gave me a hug, I immediately got a strong desire for her. She noted it and was almost frightened, but calmed down when I didn't do any further attempts to be anything other than a friend. We had a very pleasant lunch and decided to take a walk in the nearby park afterwards. During the walk, she suddenly asked me, "What was your real reason for wanting to see me again?" Faith, hope, and charity. She got a confused expression on her face before she asked me, "Is it okay for you if I tell you something I have wanted to say for many years?" I said, "Okay, go on." She told me, "I've done 3 big mistakes in my life. Going to that damn wedding was my first big mistake. You were right. I was humiliated as hell when the hosts tried to get me and the groom's asshole brother do things together all the time. When the groom asked me if I had feelings for his brother, I got mad and asked him to go to hell and take his brother with him. Then I left the party. I didn't invite them to Sven's and mine wedding, which made them very mad. I thought you would forgive me and take me back when I came home, but then Lizette's boyfriend called and told me you had taken Lizette, which he had saved for their wedding night. I was still in love with you and got mad and made my second big mistake when I refused to talk to you when you phoned me. I got together with Sven only to punish you and intended to dump him and take you back. But then Lizette had gotten pregnant and that made a mess of everything. I admired you for taking care of her, but cried many nights for being so stupid that I lost you. Then I married Sven, which was my third big mistake. If I hadn't been such a stupid idiot, you and I could have been married instead." I replied, "I did a serious mistake too when I seduced Lizette that midsummer eve. Of course, you and I had split up, so I was free to do what I wanted. But I ought to have used my common sense and tried to get you back before I went further. Believe me, I have really regretted it many times. But it is never too late to give it a try again. Or is it?" She was completely surprised. "What did you say?" "Lizette and I have problems, serious problems indeed. I know she is cheating on me, but I don't have any evidence yet. Yesterday evening, before I went to the pub and met Mona, I asked her to stay home this weekend instead of going to see her mother and her lover, but she chose to go. I decided that we are finito. I'm going to divorce her as soon as I get the evidence I need. Or, if I don't succeed in getting it, I'll go for it within a month anyway." "Oh my God. I thought you two were happy." "We have been very happy. You know the old saying, if you don't get the girl you love, love the girl you get? It worked well for us. After a while, I loved her very much. Real true love indeed. But it is over now. How about you? Are you dating somebody?" She looked me straight in the eye and said, "Yes, I've met a handsome man on the net, but we haven't met in real life yet. We'll have our first date as a lunch tomorrow. So I'm too late to get a date? However, I would like to apply for being some kind of substitute for that lucky guy, just in case he isn't your dream prince. What do you say?" She kept her eyes on mine and remained silent for a few seconds before she replied, "Isn't this date a real date for you?" I could only reply, "Seeing you today is the best thing I've done for a long time, but I'm selfish enough to want to see more of you, perhaps even as something more than a friend." She shook her head. "No, I don't think it is a good solution to have you as some kind of substitute. Not at all. Then when she noted the big disappointment in my eyes, she continued, "You are my first choice, and if you are serious and promise to be honest with me, I won't need any substitutes, and I'll cancel my date. It is my lucky day today. Please remember that I never cheated on you when we were engaged. You had dumped me, and I was single when I met Lizette. I will not cheat on her before we are parting. But you and I have kids of almost the same age, and we can begin as friends. That is, if you want it. I have rented a nice summer house by the coast for the 3rd week of July, and I can promise you that Lizette and I have gone our separate ways before then." Lottie invited me to dinner at her home during the evening, and we began to make some plans for the next weeks. Jennifer and I were already good friends, and she had no bad feelings because of her mother having a boyfriend. I spent the night in Lottie's spare room, and we made a trip to the coast on Sunday. Lizette came home late Sunday evening, and we didn't say much before we went to sleep. The next week was also quiet between us. Obviously, she was in a very bad mood after I had suggested divorce. Neither of us made any attempts to initiate you-know-what. The next Friday was Midsummer Eve. Lottie and Jennifer spent it with Lottie's parents. Lizette and I were invited to spend the evening at a neighbor's house, where several families with children of different ages were gathered. Most of the afternoon was spent playing with the children. Then, in the evening, we adults had some funny games and danced, but I hardly spoke with Lizette and didn't dance a single dance with her. She usually pretended to be a good, loving wife when we were out, but now neither she nor I cared that everybody could see the chilly feelings between us. On Midsummer Day, she went to see her mother but didn't stay overnight, maybe because Tommy wasn't there. Lottie had invited me to her parents' home, and I spent a few hours there. They wished Lottie and me good luck in our new relation. The week after Midsummer came, and went with chilly feelings between Lizette and me. We were polite and correct to each other's, but neither of us showed the slightest trace of love. Of course, it was out of the question. Lizette expected to get it from Tommy, and I was looking forward to get all I wanted from Lottie. The following weekend, Lizette and our son went with her parents on a 3-day coach tour to Legoland, a famous amusement park for children, and thereafter she was going to her annual 2-day visit to her cousin. I was happy to get 4 nights at Lottie's house. Of course, both Lottie and I wanted to have it, but just in case Lizette intended to fight the divorce, it would be an advantage to have been the faithful party, and therefore we agreed to wait. Lottie, her girl, and I had a pleasant time together while Lizette was away. Lottie and I found out that we still liked each other's company very much. Real love indeed. Both Lizette and I were usually very busy at our jobs during the summer, and therefore we had decided to have only 2 holiday weeks each, and only one, the last of them, together in the summer house I had rented at the coast. Instead of the usual summer holidays, we intended to go to Thailand for 2 weeks in November. These plans were made before Tommy jumped into her life, but under present circumstances, I no longer had any intentions of going anywhere with Lizette. Instead, I had promised Lottie to dump Lizette before that week, and she had agreed to spend it in the summer house with me, and I intended to keep my promise. I think Lizette finally understood that she had caused much more serious problems in our marriage than she had intended to, and began her attempts at pretending to be a good wife again. To my great surprise, she called me all 4 evenings she was away, and told me how much she missed me. She had never called me before during all those weekends she spent at her parents' place. Each time she called me, I wanted to talk to my son. During their second day at the Legoland trip, I asked him several short, simple questions, all of which he answered yes. One of those questions was, "Is Tommy with you?" And the answer was yes. I don't think any of the adults noticed that. My guess at the reason for her calls was that she had a bad conscience about taking Tommy with her, and when they got back home, I got further evidence from my boy when they made a one-night stop at home between their 2 trips. He asked me if it was true that nasty wolves could come into our house and eat him. I asked him, "Who told you a such nasty story?" "Grandma." "Why did Grandma tell you such a nasty lie? What had you done to her?" "Nothing yet, but we have a secret, and if I tell you about it, the wolves would come and eat me." I tried a trick and told him, "What secret?" "That Tommy was with you and Mom is not any real secret. Your mom told me that she and Tommy shared one room, and you and Grandma slept in the another room. You knew my secret." "Yes, I did, but a secret is a secret. There are no wolves. Of course there isn't. But promise me not to tell Mom that we have been talking about your secret." Lizette had let the damn dragon threaten my boy. She had to pay for it. My next step was to call Niklas and tell him about my problems and cancel my visit. Then I spoke with Lottie and my friend Dan, who agreed to help me. A married woman in her marital bed is usually an extra kick, giving him a feeling of being superior to the CUC husband. I expected that Tommy could not resist the temptation of such great pleasure when I was away on my holiday trip, and therefore I had bugged our bedroom with an expensive small wireless TV camera with a receiver connected to a video with extra long playing tape hidden in the garage. The camera was connected to a motion sensor and would work even in almost complete darkness. I had tested it several times with good results, so it was ready. In my drilling company's Nissan King cab, I stored new locks to the house and cardboard boxes to pack Lizette's clothes and belongings in when it was time for her to move out of my house. After 2 painful days at home, with Lizette now pretending to be a caring wife, I packed clothes for me and our boy for a holiday week, and on Saturday morning we left as planned. Lizette told me she was very sorry that she had to stay at home and work that week, and she would miss us very much. I avoided kissing her goodbye, but promised to call her at least once a day. She even stood on the driveway waving at us when we left. I felt sorry because the woman I have loved so much had turned into such a false S. But instead of driving to Niklas' summer house, I went to Lottie's garage where I hid my car. Niklas and his wife were informed of my problems and had agreed to pretend that I was there, but out at the moment if Lizette called them. At 6 o'clock in the evening, Lottie took a drive past my house but didn't see anything unusual there. She took a new tour at 8 o'clock, and when she got back, she told me that this time she had seen a silver metallic Volvo XC90 in my driveway. It is common for people to visit friends and relatives during the summer, so no neighbor would care about a strange car on somebody's driveway during that time. I took a tour in Lottie's car at 11, and the Volvo was still there. At 1 o'clock I went there on Lottie's bicycle, sneaked into my garage, and switched the monitor on. Bingo! Exactly what I wanted to see. A naked Lizette and a naked man coming out of the bathroom, obviously after a shower together. Now that I knew I had all the evidence I needed for a divorce on my terms, I began to feel slightly better in this mad situation. Lizette was not stupid, far from it. Therefore, I was a bit surprised about how clumsy she had been with her cheating. It was just as if she wanted to get caught, and made it easy for me to catch her. First taking Tommy with her on the holiday trip, and then letting her nasty mother threaten our son with wolves. Who knows, maybe she wanted to be dumped so Tommy had to take care of her. However, I had to wait until they were sleeping before I could go on with my plan and watch them on the monitor. They lay down naked on the bed, and Lizette told him, "Let's get some sleep so we are in good shape for the grand finale goodbye F of our love story tomorrow morning." He replied, "I'll miss you so much that every weekend without you will be a terrible pain. Even when my wife is at home. Why can't we see each other at least once a month in the future? Because my marriage is in a much worse crisis than I had ever expected. Michael is still so mad about my weekends with you that he didn't even bother to kiss me goodbye when he left for a week. I made a terrible mistake by not staying at home that damn weekend when he begged me to do that. My marriage has been in a total mess since then. You are a great lover, but I want to have a good life with my husband again. Too late for that, damn S," I told myself before Tommy replied. "No need to regret anything that weekend. I gave you a good time, and you must agree that once a month in the future would give us something to look forward to." Now she sounded a bit irritated, and no doubt she had started to feel some remorse when she replied, "No, Tommy. When you have left after breakfast, our wonderful love story is history, and I'm turned into a good, faithful, loving wife who does everything, I mean everything, to win her husband's love back again. But why think about that now? I'm still only yours until then. Be a good boy and don't waste a single minute of our good time." I could not hear his reply, but obviously he wasn't able to give her any further F without resting a few hours, and after a while they were both asleep. I pushed a button on my cell phone. My friend Dan woke up after a few signals, and I told him, "I've got bingo. Are you ready for some action?" He promised to be there within 15 minutes. I could have taken care of a Tommy in my bed by myself. The main reason I wanted my friend to be present was that he would be able to testify that I didn't use any violence against neither Tommy nor Lizette. If I had gone in there alone, I'm sure her mother would have gotten some lawyer to invent a nasty story and sue me for rudeness. Another good reason was that Dan owned a very good video camera and was keen on using it. He was often hired to tape weddings, and I wanted some close-ups, which I did not get from my own camera. Dan arrived as promised. We had a short briefing about how to do it, and then we sneaked into my house. The master bedroom door was closed. I opened it a few centimeters so I could see them both sleeping under a blanket, very close to each other. When Dan had his camera equipment ready, he nodded and I said, "Let's do it." I opened the door. Dan switched on the bright battery-operated halogen light and began taping. I went to the bed, pulled away the blanket without waking them, and let Dan have at least 5 seconds on tape before I shouted, "What the hell is this?" They woke up in total surprise. It took several seconds for them to understand what was going on, and until their eyes got used to the sharp light. Then Lizette recognized me and started screaming, "No, no, no, no." I took over the camera and told Dan to take the naked Tommy out of my house. Dan took a firm grip of Tommy's hair and dragged him out of the bed and out of the bedroom. There was some noise and shouting out there, but I was in the bedroom and couldn't see what happened. Dan came back after a while, searching for Tommy's keys. He found them in his pants and went out and threw them out to the driveway. Then we heard him drive away, naked. In the meantime, Lizette had stopped screaming and begun crying. I think she understood her game was over because she made no stupid attempts to try to explain what had happened. I told her, "You have terminated our marriage. Get dressed and get out of my house. You don't have the car any longer, so Dan will call a taxi for you. There will be new locks on the doors tomorrow. I'll pack your belongings in cardboard boxes, and you can pick them up tomorrow afternoon." She began shouting at me, "You can't do that. You have no right to do such nasty things to your wife. I will never accept that. I don't give cat shit for what you do or don't accept. Please read our premarital settlement. You have a copy of it in your private bank safe. You're out of this house. Please don't do this to me. Please calm down and let us talk. Of course we can talk tomorrow. Be here at 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon to pick up your things and dividing everything we own together. Come alone. Remember that your parents are not permitted to put their crappy feet on my property." The taxi arrived and had to wait 10 minutes for her before she was ready to go. Dan went home to sleep and I phoned Lottie and told her that I had found Lizette and a man by the name of Tommy naked in the marital bed, which meant that my marriage was over, but I wanted to stay in the house until I had changed the locks. I already had the new lock stored in my king cap. Once again I had won a battle, but could only feel sadness for the crashed marriage and for how it ended. I couldn't sleep, so I went to the garage and took the video cassette, put it in the video, rewound it, and pushed the button. It began with Lisette, dressed to kill in a black top, short black skirt, her hair well done, giggling and leading Tommy into our bedroom. She was sexier than I had seen her in years, and it was obvious that it was a great evening for her. In the bedroom, she could not resist bragging about how much we had paid for our new marital bed, and told him to be careful and don't make a mess in it. He silenced her with a long, deep, intensive kiss and took off her top and a black-laced bra I had never seen before. He kissed her before she went down on her knees and unbelted his trousers. To my great surprise, she was wearing sexy black stay-up stockings instead of pantyhose. When I had suggested her to wear something like that, she had accused me of being a pervert for making her such shameful suggestions. Obviously, Tommy was getting better favors from her than I ever had. Later, none of them said a word for a long time until she said, "We have to shower," and he replied, "Together." Then the screen was empty for a long time until it showed what I had already seen during the night and thereafter when Dan and I got into the room and their awakening. I was still too upset to sleep, so I began removing Lizette's clothes from the wardrobes and drawers and store them in the living room. At 9 o'clock in the morning, Lottie and the kids came to my house with breakfast in a basket. When I searched Tommy's wallet, I found a phone number to his wife, called her and told her that I had found Tommy and my wife naked in my bed and had videotape. She got totally mad but asked me to send pictures to her email, which I promised to do, and did after I had edited a copy of the video to show Lizette if she had any objections to my conditions. I changed locks, packed Lizette's belongings in good order, and wrote the contents on the outside of every box. I felt no need for revenge by soiling or destroying anything of hers. Then I took my chainsaw and cut our almost new and very expensive marital bed to small pieces, which I then threw in a pile by the driveway. Lottie and the kids had even brought me a lunch, which gave me a break from the job. Then, at 4 o'clock, A pale Lizette arrived alone in the printing company's old Ford Transit. She stared for a long time at the pile, which had been our expensive bed, before she came in. I had coffee ready in the living room and asked her to sit down. She accepted, sat down and began sobbing and gave me a long litany about how much she still loved me and how sorry she was that she had done a terrible mistake and would never do that again if I could only forgive her. She promised to work less at the printing company, spend all weekends with her family, never go to a party or dinner at her mother's place without me, and she wanted us to have one more child. I replied her, 3 weeks ago you could saved our marriage with those promises, but today, after what you have done since then, it is too late. I'm sorry, Lizette, but there is no future for us any longer. She began her litany again. I let her go on, and when she had finished I asked her, you must have regarded me as a complete idiot if you thought I swallowed your lies about that Tommy, a 30-year-old who spent his weekends as company to such a disgusting old bee as your mother. Even if I had been thinking with my ass instead of my head, I ought to have understood that there was a much younger and prettier that wanted to be seduced by him. She didn't say anything and I continued. You are a very handsome woman, Lizette, so I can't blame him. But I blame you for being such a damn cheap that you let him terminate our marriage and make our child very unhappy. Why, Lizette? Why? Was I so bad a husband that you had to F that damn a hole? You were neither my first nor my best choice, but I married you when you needed me and even fell in love with you, Lizette. I have been a faithful husband to you until this very moment. She sobbed. It's not your fault. I never stopped loving you. You are my only real love. But I know you have slept with many other women and I had not experienced any man other than you. I'm sorry and really regret that I could not resist the temptation to do that, only with one other man. And I can promise you that I have no need to do that again. I replied, however, now that you have what you wanted, I hope you are happy. At least your damn mother must be very happy. She has gotten what she wanted during all our time together. Please make her even happier by telling her that I don't care ass about what you did, because your cheating got me free to marry a woman who really loves me. Didn't you understand that you terminated our marriage that Friday before midsummer when I begged you to spend the weekend with your family, but you preferred to go and F that Tommy at your mother's place? Did you really think that I would accept being a damn CUC? The only reason I didn't kick you out of my house right then was that I wanted to get evidence of your cheating, so I could get rid of you without having to pay you anything at all. Please remember that I even offered you divorce on fair terms, but to my surprise you refused. A clever woman like you ought to have understood that I will never accept to be a poor husband to a cheating wife. I didn't want a divorce then, and I don't want it now because I love you. Of course I understood that the kid had told you about Tommy, and you suspected something, but I never thought you would get any evidence. I regretted the affair and have promised myself that Tommy was my both first and last cheating, but decided to fulfill it as Tommy and I had planned. The night with him in our house would be the grand finale, the very last with him, and my last cheating ever. To be honest, I was glad it was over, and I can't deny that your behavior after that Friday made me worried about the problems I had caused to our marriage. I began to fear the worst when you treated me like air and refused to have it with me. Therefore, I wanted to be a good wife again and do my best to win your love again and really spoil you during our week in the summer house and do my best to get pregnant as soon as possible and give you the child you wanted so much. I've even been looking for a new job. I'm afraid it is too late now. I replied, right you are. The Friday before midsummer was your last chance. You didn't care about me then, and now, after what happened last night, there is only one possible solution to our problems. I gave her the divorce papers and told her, please sign these so we can do it the easy way. What do you mean? Whatever you prefer, the easy way or the hard way. Everything will be on the conditions in our premarital settlement. You have a copy in your private bank deposit box. You get everything that belongs to you, and I'll take what is mine, which means almost everything except your clothes. I want custody of our son, but you can see him frequently when you have a place of your own. But I will not allow you to take him to the dragon's nest where you are living now. She was very pale when she asked, do you mean that I don't have the right to get anything of what we own? Right. The house, the cars, my stocks and bank accounts, and the drilling company are my private property. Please remember that it was your mother who demanded that we should get the premarital settlement. I have worked hard and been well paid. I have paid for everything here, and your dear mother have only paid you pocket money, hardly enough to buy you clothes. I've hired professional help to investigate the printing business and found out what you already must know. It will be bankrupt before the end of the year. Your mother owes you a lot of money. You have to claim what she owes you before her business files for bankruptcy. Otherwise, the bank takes everything. If you agree to cooperate in our divorce, I can pay for a lawyer to help you get your money. Your mother is going to lose them regardless. Therefore, it is better for both her and you that you get them. Your mother may regard this solution as a kick in her ass, but my main reason for helping you in this matter is that with that money, you can afford to get a decent apartment where you can take our son when it is your turn to have him. I'm thinking of our kid, and you are still his mother, even after what you have done to him and me." Now she began her litany about how sorry she was and how much she regretted everything she had done. I interrupted her by saying, "Please remember how I begged you to stop it and stay home one weekend with me, but you preferred going to F Tommy instead of staying home with your family. You made your choice then, and now I've made mine." Her next effort was to try and tell me that Tommy had never F her. They had only done some almost innocent necking. I pushed the button on the remote control. The video player turned on, and our home movie screen began to show selected nasty parts of the videotape. Lizette screamed hysterically, "Stop it! Stop it! Stop it!" I pushed the stop button and told her, "Sorry, Lizette. That's too much for the damn husband to take." "Why, Lizette? Why did you do that to me? Why didn't you just tell me you wanted a divorce, and you'd have gotten much better terms than you'll get now? Why humiliate me with that a hole?" She understood that the game was over and began to sob. I continued, "Done is done and can never be undone, but we can do our best to find a reasonable solution. But if the damn dragon you call mother tries to play any further tricks on me or tries put her ugly nose in this matter, this video will be on the internet, so the whole town can see what a disgusting mess my ex-wife has been. Do you understand?" Now she was frightened and shouted, "You can't do that. What will I do? I have nothing left, and even my job is going to hell. May I suggest you be a good girl and choose the easy way for our divorce? Just accept the terms in our premarital settlement and my conditions without any objections. I promise to help you get your remaining salary. Please remember that you still have your big love Tommy. He can take care of you like I did when you had cheated on your previous boyfriend. He can't. He's married. Not for much longer. His wife wasn't very happy when I spoke with her this morning, and she was rather angry indeed. At noon, when she had seen some pictures and clips from my video, which I emailed to her, she promised to dump him. Good news for you, Lizette. Tommy is yours from now on, only yours. Oh my God, you must be mad. How could you destroy their marriage? Not difficult at all. I found her phone number in his wallet, which he left here last night. Did you already forget that the damn a-hole left my wife in my marital bed and destroyed my marriage? Lottie had told me that she didn't want anything from my house, and the only thing I wanted was everything in my home office and my expensive music and home movie set, plus all of the art with some value. We decided to meet next Saturday to divide all our family photos and videos. I let Lizette take everything she wanted. She never mentioned anything about the almost new and very expensive marital bed she'd seen cut to pieces and brought to pile next to the driveway. She promised to pick up her things as soon as she got an apartment of her own, and I intended to give away the remaining things to the Salvation Army, which had a secondhand store in town. Lizette looked glad that I made it easy for her to furnish her apartment and told me that she was very short on money nowadays, and after some thinking she agreed that getting her remaining salary was an acceptable matter. Lizette chose the easy way, signed the divorce papers, and I helped her load her belongings into her van. When Lizette had left my house, I went straight over to Lottie, who had a romantic dinner ready for us. Then, when the kids were sleeping, we went to her bedroom, where she had made the bed with new sheets. We hugged and kissed for a long time before we slowly began to undress each other. Both of us wanted to do so much that the only possible description of what happened there in her bedroom at that very moment must be true love, which is a higher level of what is usually called you know how. We had waited such a long time for a chance to do that, and now when we got it, we did it well. It was a great night indeed. Things went well for us, and these days it is a pleasure to come home after work to a house filled with joy and laughter. And we are a family which does funny things together during the weekends. Lottie and I expected it would take some time before we got the kids to accept the new situation, and were very happy when the kids almost at once got used to the new, spare parent, and each other's company and played well together. The card was Dan's suggestion. I accepted, and he had his mother buy a nice greeting card on which she wrote in her nicest handwriting, "Dear friends, I must salute you for winning the bet. You did what must be every parent's dream when you persuaded your only daughter to dump her good loving husband to become AS for a cheating married man. She must be very grateful to you for the rest of her life. Yours truly, faithful friend." I mailed it to Lizette's father, who, as the rumors in town later told, had objected to have Tommy at their place every weekend to seduce Lizette, but been overruled by his wife. He'd felt both sadness and anger while Lizette was crying for hours after I had dumped her. The card was the last straw on the poor camel's back, and at last he understood that if he had acted as a man, he ought to have put a stop to his wife's madness. He regretted having been such a coward and being turned into a laughingstock among his acquaintances. After a few drinks, he had summoned guts enough to give his humble opinion to his wife. Their arguing ended up in a real fight, which sent her to the hospital for a week and him spending a night at the police station. The day before she was released from hospital, he had packed his suitcases and left their home. As they had no underage children, their divorce was final within 3 months. After Lizette had chosen the easy way for our divorce and accepted all of my conditions with no objections, she didn't bother to get a lawyer of her own, and the divorce went through as expected. I got custody of our child but promised Lizette not to cause any problems for her, and she could see the child as much as she wanted, up to 182 days a year when she had her own place. But I didn't allow her to take the child to her mother's house or summer house. Lizette had no objections to that because she had gotten on bad terms with her mother and quit her job at the printing business. Her mother had gotten furious when Lizette had claimed her remaining salary, refused to pay her anything, and went totally mad when Lizette sued her. Lizette won the case, and the enforcement service succeeded in getting her money 2 weeks before the printing company went bankrupt. The bank had objections, but Niklas had fixed her a good lawyer who persuaded the bank to withdraw their claims. Tommy's visit to my house to celebrate his romance with Lizette lasted only a short, intensive and, at the beginning of it, pleasant time which soon turned into a terrible nightmare for him. After I had found him in my bed, and he went away naked from my house in his Volvo, he was caught by the traffic police who had a control for drunk drivers on their way home from parties. Lizette and he had celebrated the happy ending to their love story with a good dinner with my best Rioja wine and cognac. He was taken, naked, to the police station for a blood sample. One of Lizette's friends told me later that she had heard rumors that he got heavy fines and lost his driver's license for 2 years. His wife did what she had promised. She came home, dumped him, and filed for divorce. Nowadays, she works for the UN in Geneva, Switzerland, where she lives together with an Italian colleague whom she met during her UN job. Tommy tried to solve his personal problems with Dr. Booze, which forced him to take a timeout from his job. A good F doesn't always lead to good luck. He never met Lizette again and refused to take any of her many calls during her desperate efforts to talk with him. Before he got into her, he had made her promises about taking care of her if she got problems in her marriage. Now she found out the cruel truth, that all his talk had been only mumbo-jumbo, and she had been naive enough to believe everything he told her. And she had finally realized what a tragic character he really was and gave up on her efforts and hopes of a happy future with him. The extra money from the printing business gave her a chance to buy an apartment in a nice area, and she had no problems finding a new job. Though we are cooperating very well over the kid, we never talk about anything personal. Lizette is a very handsome woman and not a bad choice now that she is free of her mother's influence, so I'm a bit confused about why she is not dating yet. Lottie and I married immediately after my divorce was final. We sold both our old houses and bought one together. She is pregnant now, and I think that these days we are a pretty average family of our time with 3 kids, all of them with a different pair of parents. We don't care about that because we are a happy family.